tear gas on the street.
Before the chants could echo, the smoke rose. Police fired tear gas at demonstrators calling for the release of Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. They accused protesters of crossing restricted areas and disobeying a court order.
The protesters were dispersed, and this came after several warnings for them to disperse. So the excuse of, oh, there are people with health concerns does not come up because they were clearly warned.
Protesters insist they were only exercising a fundamental right, the right to be heard.
We were attacked ruthlessly everywhere we went.
Across the ocean in the United States, nearly 7 million marched in the No Kings protest against Donald Trump's policies. From Times Square to Washington, D.C., Chicago to Los Angeles, crowds swelled. Critics, including the president, called it a Hate America rally. Organizers call it democracy in action. The National Guard stood by. The police stood back. No batons, no chaos, and no tear gas in sight. Across the Atlantic to Europe, in France and the UK, protests are a familiar sight. In France, over pensions, fuel, or pay, they take to the streets almost weekly. During recent anti-austerity strikes, tear gas drifted through Paris as bottles were thrown and windows smashed. Police say it was needed to disperse violent elements and protect property. And in London, from pro-Palestine rallies to anti-immigration marches, police favor containment known as kettling, not clouds of gas. They face criticism for such tactics and making preemptive arrests. Back in Nigeria, why do so many protests here still end with smoke in the air?
The DNA of law enforcement agencies is that of repression, because the Nigerian police, for example, is a creation of the colonial government. And the notion of colonial government is to repress the natives to protect those in power. We call it regime protection.
In developed countries, you see 1 million people demonstrating in an orderly manner. But here, even a few hundred or a few thousand, before you know it, they use sticks, they use bottles, they use other things. That's on the part of the demonstrators. And then on the part of our security agencies is also a problem, whether it's poor training or poor orientation or their own frustration with their own conditions.
The 2020 NSAS protest began peacefully. Some experts say what went wrong was weak crowd control training, poor coordination, and panic among security forces that turned a civic moment into a national tragedy. 5 years on, many say not much has changed, especially how security agencies handle dissent during protests. Different countries, same right, but worlds apart in execution. In Nigeria, the discussion around policing is again on the front burner. At the latest National Economic Council meeting, governors backed President Tinubu's proposal to overhaul police training institutions, described as dilapidated and in need of upgrade. Officials say it is aimed at improving morale and professionalism. But as questions persist over how officers handle protests, many wonder, will the revamped training centers change how police respond when citizens raise their voices, or simply teach them to follow orders from the top faster? Because in the end, observers say the strength of a democracy isn't in the noise of the crowd, but in how the state chooses to listen.